So when we talk about the fear of speaking, the fear of being judged, that's because we're too busy putting the spotlight on ourselves. The spotlight wasn't meant for you. The highlight was meant for the people who are listening so that they can take that information and share it with the next person and the person after that and the person after that.
Welcome to Innovating Education, the podcast where we explore groundbreaking ideas and practices, reshaping how we learn, teach, and lead. I'm your host, Dr. Marc Williams, and today we're thrilled to be joined by Marc Williams, a remarkable educator, speaker, and leader with a passion for inspiring others and transforming lives. Marc has dedicated his career to helping individuals unlock their potential, from students in underserved communities to professionals looking to enhance their communication skills. In this episode, we'll dive into Marc's inspiring journey, his strategies for overcoming fear in communication, and his groundbreaking Rules of Engagement program. We'll also explore actionable advice for educators, as well as his vision for making a global impact through speaking and teaching. So let's get started. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. It's an awesome opportunity to be here with you and have this conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Marc, I'd like to start with your incredible journey. You've turned personal adversity into a source of strength and inspiration for so many. Can you share the pivotal moments or experiences that shaped your approach to speaking, education, and leadership?
Pivotal moment. Wow. You got me going through a timeline of lifetime, right? And where I would stop on the journey to explain the pivotal moment would be the day there was a knock at my door at my office in the school I was working with at the time. Head guidance counselor walks in and says, "We got a problem. We have 60 young Black men in this school, and we're in a school of 6,000 students. 1,500 of them are 10th graders, but only 60 of them were young Black men." Think about that comparative percentage. And she had started a support group for these young men. And for the very first meeting, she had scheduled a keynote speaker to come in and inspire these young men. But he had to cancel at the last moment. So the reason why she was knocking on my door is because she needed somebody to speak to these young men. And my first thought was, I don't know what to say. But then she convinced me that I did have something of value to say. And because she trusted me with that opportunity, I pulled out a napkin and I wrote down the answer to this question. If I had done anything in my life that might inspire anybody, what got me to this point? And I wrote down a number of different things that then became some talking points that I would use to speak to these young men. And for 60 minutes, I spoke to 60 young Black men about what helped me and what ultimately can help them to achieve the things that they want to do in life. And I am happy to say that while I have not been in touch with all of them, I have followed many of them through social media and have seen them do some pretty awesome things. And so that is the pivotal moment that actually had me write my first book, which then got me speaking, which got me in front of other people to share my story and to elevate theirs.
That's incredible. So fear of public speaking is one of the most common challenges that people face. What strategies have you found most effective for helping individuals overcome the fear of speaking in front of an audience?
You have to make it fun. Whoa, hold on, stop. Let me backtrack. I said you have to take the thing that creates the greatest fear and make it fun. So what do I mean by that? What's the story behind that? I had another friend who reached out to me and she said she wanted me to help young kids with their public speaking. And when she said young, I had been used to working with high school students. I didn't know that what she meant were elementary students. And Dr. Riley, when I say elementary students, I mean some of them were first grade, some of them were still learning how to read, let alone trying to speak in front of a group of people. And I was trying to think, I can't go the traditional way of teaching these children how to speak. This is not a class for high school students or college students or professionals. These are young kids. So what do young kids like to do? They like to play games. And so I started creating gamified activities so that our children didn't really realize that they were learning to speak. They just thought they were having fun doing a couple of games. And that then taught me to then also do this with adults and define gamified, what me and my business partner call speaking drills, and create a much more relaxed environment. So we have to find a way to make it fun, but I know that can sound very Pollyanny. So actually, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to take that back. It doesn't sound Pollyanny. It just sounds like what we're not used to doing. So we have to find a way to do it. And I will tell you, one of the many ways that I have found fun in speaking is through storytelling. A lot of times people feel that when they speak, they've got to be the expert in the room with the hardcore data and the insight of all insight. And we then put our pressure on ourselves to be the end-all, be-all, know-all. The best end-all, be-all, know-all that you have to be is the end-all, be-all, know-all of the story you've lived. And if you can find stories that you enjoy telling, that's one of the ways to start overcoming speaking. Wow, I'm going to stop right there, but I got a whole bunch of other things that just popped up into my head as I was saying.
No, go on. I want to hear it.
So I was teaching a public speaking class on the high school level. And students are terrified. As a matter of fact, I had a young lady come up to me, first day of school. She walked up and she said, "Mr. Williams, this is this public speaking class?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I can't do this." I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, I can't. I can't get up in front of people and speak. I've been in other classes. I've cried. I've nearly thrown up. I've gotten sick. I've had panic attacks. Like, I cannot do this. And I tried to explain to her that this was a required course for graduation. Like, you cannot. This was for those who know the New York City public school system, you have to take 8 terms of English in high school. This public speaking class was one of those credits. She could not graduate. She had to take this class. What I ended up doing with her is I would only call on her to speak often from her seat. And eventually I'd ask her, just stand up by your desk. Just stand up and say it. And I just wanted to get her in the habit, even if it was something small or something short or something concise or something brief, to just kind of get up and feel what that was like. Can I tell you, Dr. Riley, by the time this entire course was over, she gave a 5 or 10 minute persuasive speech on why marijuana should be legal. And she brought in a visual aid, not a real paraphernalia, cardboard, construction paper. But she felt so comfortable. But I tell that story because she also reminded me of the many other students who were in class who felt the pressure. And where does that pressure come from? 2 places. One, we expect our students to do all of this research and to become the research experts and to go up there and talk like they know what they're talking about or what they read. And they're feeling judged about whether it's right or whether it's wrong, whether it's correct, whether it's accurate. And then we throw this added pressure. We open up the grade book. We take out a rubric. We may even hand score sheets or rubrics or notes to the other students of the class. And for 5 or 10 minutes, these young people who have to feel like they're the expert in the room, who are trying to memorize all kinds of numbers, stats, and data that they've researched probably the night before. And while they're doing that, they're looking out at a sea of eyes, feeling like they're being judged. When, can I tell you this little secret? I think the only person who was actually evaluating was the teacher, because I think all the other students were like, man, I don't care about what you're going through. I'm just trying to think about this week I've got to do next. So everybody's all concerned about it, and we're spewing out all of these facts, when some of the best times that I've seen students have is when they went up and started telling some of their personal stories. And when they started telling their personal stories, I actually think that, I believe that we should replace traditional public speaking courses with storytelling courses. Get a circle. Let's tell stories around, like, treat the classroom like a campfire and have students going around telling stories. And I think that should be the starting point before you start getting to the hardcore presentations and the data. We have to ease students into it. And if we can find a way to gamify things, even better, even better. All right. I know you told me I can go on, so I'm just going to go on and say this. And then I'm curious about what other questions you got. I had a professor in college, Professor Green. If I could find Professor Green, it would make my day. So there's a call out to Professor Green somewhere on the planet. One day I'm sitting in Professor Green's class, and she gave us one of these assignments. I don't remember what the speech was about, but I know that I had prepared for it. And by the way, don't be fooled. I may get up and do speeches now, but I was that kid in class who used to put my head on the desk and pretend like I wasn't feeling well. I was feeling perfectly fine, but I was hoping the teacher would feel bad and not call on me. Quite often they see through that. But I would play that game. This time in Professor Green's class, I didn't play that game. I was prepared to give the speech. But something weird happened when I was in front of the rest of my classmates. About 2 or 3 of them sitting over there started having a side conversation in the middle of the speech I'm getting graded for. And about 2 or 3 of them over there, I don't know what they were doing, but it was distracting while I was giving a speech for a grade. What I then remembered was, before I started my speech, Professor Green had handed them index cards. And on those index cards were instructions to be disruptive. She was creating, because let's be honest, no matter how awesome you are, you could put a Tony Robbins and Eric Tammet, Lisa Nichols on stage. Somebody in the audience is going to be having a side conversation or taking out their phone. It's real life. People get distracted, right? We know about attention spans. She was preparing us for a situation like that. But she gamified it. She even gamified it one day when we were standing in front of the library of the school, and she sent one of us across the street over traffic to then give a speech without a microphone. We had to practice projection over traffic to the rest of the class. She found a way to gamify it, to make it fun. And listen, I'm not going to stand here and say that there weren't some students in my class who were terrified by this notion, who thought she was a crazy, torturous professor. but I saw the fun in what she was trying to do. She was trying to do something completely untraditional, something completely different. And it's wrapped up in the word fun. We've got to find a way to not just put students up in front of a classroom and tell them to speak. Do you know that athletes do not get better when they're playing the game? They get better during practice. Performers do not get better during the show. They get better during the rehearsal. To answer your question, here's how we eradicate the fear of public speaking. We gamify it. We create speaking opportunities that are more like drills and fun games so that people develop those skills in a non-judgmental environment so that when they are ready, they will have developed the skills. All right, I promised I was going to shut up, but I'm going to say this one last thing. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Karate Kid, but if you've ever watched the movie The Karate Kid, all right, spoiler alert. He teaches this young man, Daniel, comes to Mr. Miyagi to learn karate. And Mr. Miyagi has him washing the car and painting the fence. And one day, Daniel's like, I came to you to learn karate and you got me doing household chores, washing cars and painting fences. And then Mr. Miyagi shows him that the painting the fence and the washing the car are actually karate moves. Now, I won't say that doing household chores were fun, but he found a way to teach something without people realizing that they were actually learning. That's how we eradicate the fear of speaking.
So, do you see common trends in the types of fears that people bring to the table? And if so, how do you tailor your methods to help them?
I think that's a great question. I do see a number of trends. I think the first trend that I often see that comes to mind right now is people are worried about being able to speak extemporaneously or off the top of their head. They're afraid that they're going to ramble. I think the fear of speaking for many people is the fear of rambling. And so one of the things that I've often taught people is really just how to structure things in their head. And one of the most fabulous, successful ways that I, as of late, that I've come across is this thing called idea, emotion, outcome. What's the idea that you want people to walk away with? What's the emotion that you want them to feel, right? And that emotion can be invigorated through a story that you can tell. And then what's the outcome? What do you want them to do with what you just shared? So if you could start thinking, no matter what the question is, I asked a client once, what's your favorite food? And yeah, she could have said pizza. But at the end of the day, do I care that her favorite food is pizza? Am I going to remember it? Well, I guess I am because I just said it, right? But the reason why I actually remember it is because the idea that she wanted to share about what her favorite food is that food is most enjoyable when you enjoy it in the company of the people you love. That I remember more than the pizza. It doesn't matter whether it's pizza, shrimp fried rice, lasagna, it doesn't matter what it was. Hamburger, french fries, it doesn't matter. What I remembered was her idea. And she talked about the emotions she wanted people to feel. And she said, listen, so I want you to think about who you can go enjoy your next meal with. So the biggest fear of speaking is a fear of rambling. But if we can give ourselves some kind of a structure to follow, a systematic structure to follow every time we speak, that stops us from rambling. And that's one of the biggest fears that people have.
That's really interesting. You know, I was actually an extemp speaker in high school, and we had a similar flow. We had the introduction, and the introduction, you had to catch someone's attention. And then you had to have three major points. And within those points, you had to have three smaller points. And then you were able to close, and that's how you were graded. And so I really like that you say that there's a structure to public speaking.
That reminds me of the second fear. Yes, we have this structure, but there's a lot of people out there who think that they actually don't have anything of value to say. And I think that taps in with judgment as well. Oh, I'm going to open up. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to think. It's that age-old imposter syndrome, if I could put a name to it. And I think that's a serious fear. And so I go back to, that's why we tell stories. That's why we tell stories. I ask people all the time, here's the thing. You ready for this one? Become a story gatherer or a story hunter. What does that mean? That means that every day you should look for a story, either in your own experience, in your observations, or in things that you read or consume on the internet, what have you, and look for an opportunity by the end of the day to retell one of those stories. Get in the mind of looking for stories to retell, right? And you think about that, like most days it's, hey, Dr. Ryland, how was your day today? You had a day today? Good day today. Well, how was the weather today? But life is an experience. And every day there's something. Even if it's the smallest thing you saw on the street, in the subway, at school, at work, there's some story to tell. Become a story gatherer and a story hunter. My good friend, I got to give her, my business partner, I got to give her credit here. She also talks about keeping a story file. And that's basically, you can use, well, she likes to use Evernote, but I think you can use any platform. And the whole idea is every day, at the end of the day, take some story or some moment and jot it down. She even likes to go to the next level and start categorizing it because, if I'm speaking about this, maybe I can use a story about that. And by the way, it doesn't even have to necessarily be a traditional story. It could be a quote that you heard, or, I love the way that sounds. I got to write that in my story file. We have to capture things to then bring them to life. So I think part of that other fear of, I got nothing to say, is because sometimes we limit what we can say by not exploring all of the content that is in this world. We're in an age and a generation of content creators. But the truth is, content creators are not limited to the influencers on social media. Everyone is a content creator. And if you're not a content creator, you're at least a content consumer. So consume some content and retell it. Because here's the deal. The history of speaking, humanity, I'm not talking about any country, any color, any race, any creed. The history of communicating and speaking in humanity was that I'd go to your town, Dr. Miley, and I'd tell you a story. And you liked that story, and then you went to the other town and you told that story. And it went on and on and on and on like that, right? So we consumed and then we shared, which, by the way, is why, here's the other thing I often tell people. That's why at the end of the day, speaking, don't get offended by what I say right now. Speaking is not about you. It's about the people who are receiving the message. So when we talk about the fear of speaking, the fear of being judged, that's because we're too busy putting the spotlight on ourselves. The spotlight wasn't meant for you. The highlight was meant for the people who are listening so that they can take that information and share it with the next person and the person after that and the person after that. So these are all of these different fears, and these are the different concepts and mindsets that I often share with people because, and as I saw you had the word mindset on your shirt, right? So I'm picking up on that. I'm picking up on that because mindset is everything. And when I work with young people, when I coach professionals, here's what people have said. My coaching is sort of like a combination of being in the room with a coach, a teacher, and a therapist. Now, I'm a coach. I'm a teacher. But I will not claim to be a professional therapist. I am not. I'm not stepping on those toes. I respect those who have done it. But what I will say is my coaching has a therapeutic aspect to it. Why? Because I believe that whatever is getting you stuck around speaking in front of people, it's something dealing with mindset, it's something dealing with a past experience, but it's here. So we're going to check out what's here, we're going to check out what's past, and we're going to address it. That's the other issue with speaking. The reason why I believe there is a fear of speaking is because we think of speaking and communicating from a deficit perspective. What I can't do. I'm not loud enough. I don't have anything to say. I speak too fast. I can't structure my thoughts. I ramble. We think of it in a deficit model. But what are you good at? I'm good at telling stories. I'm good at rhyming words. I'm good at looking at my shirt for these words and saying something about them. I know a lot about football. I have one person I work with. I call her the queen of metaphors. She can come up with a metaphor for anything. That's her communication superpower. So I encourage her when she's communicating with people, use those metaphors more often in your communication because that's something you're already comfortable doing. So leverage it. All right, here's one other thing. I'm going to make a sports reference. I always make this sports reference. Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq Diesel, was horrible at shooting free throws. For us who follow Shaq, we know he was horrible at shooting free throws. And yes, did he show up to practice and practice shooting free throws? Yes. But did he focus most of his game on dunking the ball and shattering the backboard? More so. He leveraged what he was good at. He accepted what was a deficit, but he leveraged what he was good at. The reason why he's a Hall of Famer player is because he leveraged. He wasn't thinking from a deficit. We need to do the same thing with speaking and communicating. Leverage what you're good at. Find out what you're good at and use that more often.
Okay, you have to tell us more about the Rules of Engagement program. This has been transformative for so many people. Can you share the core principles of this program and why they resonate so deeply with your students?
Rules of engagement. These are 10 rules for speaking in front of people. I came up with these rules when I was asked to do a workshop for young people who are members of the National Society of Black Engineers. They were doing a local workshop, youth workshop, and I was asked to do this. I was big into acronyms. I give credit to my second grade teacher, Mrs. McIntyre, who introduced me to acronyms. That's why I will always remember the order of the 9 planets. Did I say 9 planets? My son says, no, there's 8 planets. I said, that's not what Mrs. McIntyre taught me. So my very educated mother just served us 9 pickles. That's how I'll always remember this order. Okay, fine, of the 8 planets. So I always loved acronyms. So I thought, what are 10 different things that people can do And then I came up with each of these 10, and everyone started with the first letter of, or each letter in the word engagement. I talk about eye contact. I talk about, being prepared, right? Not memorizing, but being prepared. And I talk about grabbing the audience's attention. You talked about that earlier, right? And I talk about energizing the audience. And I talk about always being confident. And I always talk about giving your audience something to see, because no one's listening with their eyes closed. They're watching you speak. And I talk about, making a point, and I talk about emphasis and emotion. And I talk about notes. Why? Because research is important. And finally, I talk about timing, because timing is essential. I believe these 10 rules are received the way that they are because they're tangible. Eye contact should be renamed connect, because it's all about connecting with your audience through your eyes. And so they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. When people feel like for a moment you're speaking to them, you make that person feel like, even just for 5 seconds, they're the only person in the room. You make them feel included. And that's why that 5 seconds of eye contact has been one of the best examples of what people have said to me in terms of the rule of engagement being something tangible that they can apply. I did a workshop a couple of years ago. It was the first time I ever did it. It was called Communication Calisthenics. And so I remember going to this workshop, and we were all in person, and I got people to get up out of their seats, and we would do drills. I talked to them about the 5 seconds of eye contact, and then I said, okay, here's what everybody's going to do. 5 seconds. You're going to look around the room until you make eye contact with somebody, and you're going to hold it for 5 seconds. And then you're going to do it again with somebody else in the room. And then we did the standing ovation exercise I love to do, where now I'm in front of the room doing my extemp talking that Dr. Ryland taught me, right? And every time I look at somebody, they have to stand up. And so I want to keep talking until I get everybody in the room to stand up, until I give everybody in the room some attention. When I've done this with kids, by the way, they're like, listen, Riley, I looked at you. You better stand up. And sometimes Riley will say, yeah, but I wasn't sure if you were looking at me. So that's good feedback too, because I've got to make sure. Now, can I tell you this bonus thing? This virtual world is not going away. It's not going away. So here's the new eye contact for the virtual space. Calling people's names is the new eye contact. So when you're doing that presentation, you're telling that story, you're like, listen, Riley, when I walked into the kitchen and my mother said, boy, you better make your own bowl of cereal. Listen, Mark, I was thinking a whole bunch of this, but this is what I said. Stop. Check out what I just said to my mother. And what I'm doing is I'm looking, because the wonderful thing is everybody's name is on a box. And sometimes I will scroll, so I make sure that even if it's a large audience and everybody can't fit on one box, I'm scrolling, because guess what? I still want to call on Melissa, even if her camera is turned off, because I want to make her feel I want to make her feel included, because eye contact should be eye connect. So to answer your question about why the rules of engagement have been well received, they're tangible things that people can do. And people understand, give me something I can do right now. Don't just give me sort of general advice. And that's the rules of engagement. And if I could tie that back to the communication calisthenics, have now become speaker drills, right? So I'll jumpstart and say, I mentioned my friend Kathy, my business partner Kathy. About a year ago, we started the Speaker Skills Academy. And the Speaker Skills Academy at first was supposed to be these 8 workshops to help people become better at speaking. But then we were like, I won't do no workshop. Don't do a class. Let's create a community of people. And when we come together, it should feel like friends hanging out at game night. It should feel like happy hour, right? And we're going to take a skill like asking questions. And we're going to come up with a practice drill for asking questions. Like, all right, check it out. I want you to ask me a rhetorical close-ended question, and then I want you to follow it up with an open-ended question. And we just do that. We put a bunch of different topics in whatever topic. We're just practicing and just practicing it.
You know, I just have so many things going through my head right now as we're talking. Oh, I just love it. One being when we're kind of talking about making things fun. I was in debate just because I was super competitive. I wanted to win. But then I had friends who really enjoyed being in theater. You got to pretend to be someone else and live their experience, and that was fun too. But now that I'm thinking about conversations, that's probably one of the most important skills that we can be teaching is not only speaking, but listening. Those skills translate more than anything else.
Do you know this fun fact? Here's an unfun fact. As we progress in life, we ask fewer questions.
Really?
Ask a lot of questions. Children are doused with curiosity. But as we progress in life, as we get older in life, what's the pressure? The pressure is, well, you're the adult in the room. You should have the answers. You should know more than I do. Well, if I know more and I have all the answers, then I should be speaking. I shouldn't be asking any questions. And we get out of the habit of asking questions. But if you get out of the habit of asking questions, you get out of the habit of carrying conversation. The unfun fact is we're not asking questions enough. And so we're not practicing the art of them. We have conversations, but we're not practicing the art of having a conversation. So yeah, that's what we need to do more with our young people. And quite honestly, we probably actually need to do it more with our adults. Because the kids at least got the questions. They need the conversation. We've got the conversation, but we need to ask some more questions. So we need to work together with the kids. Get some conversations going on.
Well, let's talk about, and you knew this was coming, the communication muscle. What steps can people do to strengthen that over time?
Just like the body has many different muscles, when we speak, we also have many different muscles. Asking questions is a muscle. Projecting our voice is a muscle. Making eye contact is a muscle. Speaking faster and slowing down is a muscle. Using our hands when we speak is a muscle. Using our face when we speak is a muscle. I know we often call these skills. I think of them as muscles. The stronger we are at using them, the better we communicate. Think of them like muscles. Think of them like working out these muscles. That's why I go back to the whole point about gamifying and drilling, because if I don't exercise this muscle, what's going to happen? It's going to atrophy. Think about all of those gym memberships. I went to the gym on January 2nd because I didn't go on the 1st. I went on the 2nd. I felt really good on the treadmill and lifted a couple of weights, and I'm feeling like I can lift the world. And then March 1st came around, and I hadn't been to the gym in 2 months. And I'm wondering, why is it so hard to lift that loaf of bread? Okay, I'm exaggerating right now, right? But why is it so hard to lift that loaf of bread? Why can't I do the things I used to be able to do because we're not exercising the muscle? I used to run track, Dr. Riley, and what I always remembered is when I came back to school year in September, even though as a kid, we run around a lot. Running track is different than just running around in the park. I always felt like for the first couple of days, like I was a little slower than I used to be. But after getting back into track practice, I felt the speed coming back and the form coming back. This is why I call communication skills communication muscles, to put the emphasis on the fact that it's not enough that you have a loud voice. You have to practice speaking loudly. You have to practice speaking softly when you're trying to make that point. And so communication muscles is that concept of always practicing. So how have I helped people to practice? Well, I talked about speaker skills, but I'm also going to talk about this. I started sending emails out to a group of people, and they included two things. And your question was, how do we exercise these communication muscles? So the first thing is, I always give everybody a conversation starter question. You know, like one of those questions where, if you could be a piece of fruit, what piece of fruit would you be? Or if you could be a chess piece or the chessboard, what chess piece would you be, right? Come on. When's the last time you pushed the door when it said bull, right? All kinds of random questions. Why? Because what did I say before a couple of minutes ago? We limit ourselves to, how was your day today? Was your day good today? How was your day yesterday? Was your day young? We need more things to talk about. So I give like new conversations, starter questions every day to just give us more things to talk about. And I always encourage people, find some point during the day to answer the question, either in front of the mirror or answer that question in conversation with somebody. And then I couple it up with a drill or an exercise. So for example, the other day, the exercise was your top 10 favorite TV shows, your top 10 favorite movies, or your top 10 vacation spots. Why? Because it's exercising the mind to think of things in order. Remember we were talking about earlier, sometimes I feel like I'm rambling on. Well, how do we exercise the mind, the muscle of organizing things? Top 10 a list today and practice that, right? So I've gotten like a ton of them because I've been sending these out 365 days of the year. I got 365 different drills. I have not turned it into a book yet. Rules of Engagement was one book. Maybe. No, I won't even say maybe. I'm saying it right now, Dr. Wright. I'm saying it right now. I don't know when I'm going to publish it yet because I got a couple other things I'm working on. But I am going to publish these 365 communication drills so that every day you wake up, you can do something to exercise one of these 10 muscles, because these 10 muscles come back to those 10 rules of engagement, because each skill is based on one of those 10. So that's how you exercise your communication muscle.
I love that. And you specifically are making it actionable. That's another thing that you're doing whenever you're improving the speaker skills. So I really like that. Now, you have mastered commanding the attention of a room. What do you think the most important element of creating a presence that captivates and engages an audience is?
First of all, let me say this. I believe that everybody's got their own style. And so I go back to, you got to figure out what's your strength and leverage it. One of the ways that I have been able to develop my presence, I believe my two top communication muscles, it's my eye contact. Actually, I'm going to say my three. My eye contact, my storytelling, and my body language. So I'm on stage, 2014, Malaysia. I'm competing for the World Championship of Public Speaking. I made it all the way to the finals. This small kid from Brooklyn, New York, made it all the way to the finals on the other side of the planet. And it's me. And now at that point, I think it was 7 other or 8 other. I can't remember if it was 8 or 9 finals. And I went on stage and I did a speech. It was based on a piece of advice that my mother gave me when I was a little kid, right? And that's another story I'm going to tell you in a moment. When the speech was over, I did not win the contest. I did not have the presence that I normally do because I wasn't using my body language. I wasn't dunking the ball. I was shot trying to shoot free throws. It wasn't working, right? So I believe for me, the way that I establish presence is through my body language, through my storytelling, and through my eye contact. And by the way, sometimes what you need is someone else to notice things about your presence. I'm a big firm believer that we should not always be practicing in front of the mirror. Sometimes we need to practice in front of other people, right? And so I'm drilling with a whole bunch of people from the Speaker Skills Academy. And Kathy goes, does anybody notice what Mark does from time to time? And even I leaned in because I was like, what do I do? I don't know what I do. She goes, anytime you have something to say, you look around as if you're about to drop this big secret, and then you lean in and you tell people what you're about to say. Dr. Riley, can I tell you, I did it all the time, but I was never actually aware that I was doing it. Now that she brought it to my attention, not only do I notice it more, but I try to leverage it without making it a technique, right? Without making it, cliche or like, this is my trick, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. So figure out what your strength is, what your strongest muscle is. Lean in and leverage that more and practice in front of people and ask people like, Dr. Riley, listen, when you speak, when you do this, that gets me every time, right? Like, you should be smiling more often because every time you smile and you laugh, you lean your head back, like, I'm right in there. You make me feel joyful. You got to do more of that. Stop talking so serious on time. Make yourself laugh, right? And then make me laugh. That's your strength. So use it. So that's what I would say is a presence. It's not in the suit, because some people used to wear suits. I got to have my executive suit on. It's not in the suit. It's not in the way you stand unless you got that power pose. Find your strength, leverage your strength, and find somebody you trust who loves listening to you, and find out what is it that you do that they like listening to. Oh, that was a rhyme. I just realized that. I'm cracking myself up. I'm sorry.
Well, it's not just about clarity. Effective communication, it does have to have influence as well. How do you coach others to align their message with their audience's needs to maximize their impact?
I believe I'm going to borrow this one from Aristotle. Aristotle said, if you want to influence people, you have to use the rhetorical triangle. You have to use ethos, logos, and pathos. They might have taught you that in debate. I don't know. I don't know if they taught you that in the debate team. No? Ethos is all about appealing to everybody's perception of you. Do they trust you? Do they like you? Do they respect you? Thoughts is all about appealing to the needs of the audience. What do they want? What do they need? What's important to them? What's their why? Why are they sitting in the room listening to you? How do they want to feel? You've got to know that. And then logos, that's the appealing to the logic, to the brain. And that's why we do respect when people have information. Like, you can't just tell me how you feel about something. You got to give me some kind of research data. You can't act like you're the end all be all and not know a little bit. So tell me about a book you read, study you read, or something, right? Aristotle says, when you combine your appeal to what people think of you, your appeal to what you know they want and need, and when you appeal to their logic, what makes sense to them, that is how you increase your influence. So I always teach my clients and my students about the rhetorical triangle so that they can always be aware of, one, what's my ethos? What is my reputation? What is the reputation that I want to have? As a matter of fact, here's a quick exercise I often ask people to do. Write down 3 or 5 adjectives that you would want people to use to describe. That's your ethos. That's how you want to come across. And now start thinking about what can you do to build that reputation in the ears and the eyes and the minds of the people you speak to. Pathos. Ask people, what are you interested in? Why are you here? That's why I always tell people before you actually speak, have small talk. Have conversations with people in the room. Find out why they showed up to the room, what they're interested in knowing, what they're interested in getting out of it, and try to feed that back to people. And Lagos, do your research beforehand. Do a lot of reading. Do a lot of reading and know what you're talking about before you get up in front of the room. And by the way, if by any chance you don't know what you're talking about and somebody calls you out on it, don't fake it till you make it. Tell them, listen, that's a great question. I'll get back to you on that one, right? Because if you try to fake it, that will affect your ethos, right? So pay attention to those 3 parts of the triangle if you want to increase your influence in front of people.
And just kind of from my perspective, not as a professional speaking coach, I like how you said, instead of saying, I don't know, I will get back to you. I think that really increases your credibility as a person with the information that they're trying to listen to.
Responsibility. And by the way, you better keep your word. If you're going to get back to them, like, get back to me. But can I tell you, when, as a teacher, I used to be concerned that I had to have all the answers and I didn't want students to correct me or find out. At a certain point in my career, I realized it's okay to tell my students if they caught a mistake, say it. Validate their knowledge as well. Validate them for coming up with a good question. Validate them for catching something that you didn't catch. It's a partnership. This communication conversation thing is a partnership. Treat it that way. So it's okay if you don't know. Somebody else will know. And now you'll know.
Mark, I can't tell you how much I've just enjoyed this conversation and having the opportunity to talk with you. It's been such a pleasure and a joy, and I'm so grateful for it. And I know that our audience is going to want to know more about you and your work. Where can people go to connect with you, learn more about the Roles of Engagement program, or seek coaching?
Best way to find me is through LinkedIn. Just type in LinkedIn, Marc Williams, M-A-R-C, Williams. Also, I would encourage people to check out speakerskillsacademy.com. That's where you can find me and find out more about what we do at Speaker Skills Academy, as well as how you can find me if you're interested in coaching. And if you're interested in coaching, love to work with you. So that's the best place to find it. Oh, and I'll throw out my email address. It's markwilliamsspeaks@gmail.com. markwilliamsspeaks@gmail.com. Send me an email. I love to talk to anybody.
Mark, thank you so much again for joining us today. To our listeners, I will link the website in the description. I highly encourage you to explore the Speaker Skills Academy. You're not going to regret it. Also, we're proud to be supported by the Solvia Learning Group, whose commitment to advancing education makes conversations like these possible. So if today's episode sparked ideas or helped reframe your thinking, please be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with a colleague. And for fun, this time, I want to encourage you to think of your own top 10. Maybe your top 10 favorite moments in teaching or your top 10 most influential educators in your life. It's up to you. So until next time, keep innovating, keep inspiring, and keep making a difference.